You've survived another week. Thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting the Black Man with a Gun show. I'm your host, Ken Blanchard, and this is the second episode of 2019, believe it or not. And this week, I want to introduce you to Casey Betzold, the CEO of Antares Alliance. We're going to have a conversation with Michael. We're talking about competition shooting, lessons learned from it. And we're going to get real heavy, talking about racism and the gun community, Willie Lynch, Martin Luther King Jr., and the civil rights, and what you and I can do about all that's going on. I got a couple announcements, a couple shout outs, and we're going to get ready for episode number 598, if you can believe it, coming up next.
BlackManWithAGun.com, Ken Blanchard's Pro Gun Podcast.
Thank you for being a friend. Yeah, we've been together since 2007, some of us. This is one of the longest podcasts out there, and talking about gun rights and the gun family, it's a little bit different. It's family friendly. We're trying to do it with a purpose. And every once in a while, I hit something that sticks in my craw, if you know what I'm talking about. And I just have to give it out. Just have to share it. But I have the best audience in the world. We are from all over the country, all over the world. And the downloads ain't stopping. I thought, ain't nobody listening to me. But man, was I wrong. You should see the download list here. For the last 3 months, 13,000 plus. Solid. Almost the same number of people. Now, I know your show probably gets more than 1,400 people an episode, but I am so glad with 1,400 people. If I can get 1401 next week, I'll be real happy. So if you're not listening on a regular, please get our app. We pay some good money for that bad boy. It's available on iOS and on Google Play. Look for Black Man with a Gun. And I do believe that was only on iTunes. I didn't even count the app or the other aggregators out there. After John Wayne leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to share something that happened just the other day. This podcast is going in a museum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, what happened was I was contacted by the Black Podcast Archive Nomadic Archivist Project. They're going to put 100 copies, digital copies of this very podcast in the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history in the Atlanta Fulton Public Library. How cool is that? I'm going to be like the George Clinton of podcasting. And I wouldn't have got here without financial support from people like you on our Patreon page, from longtime sponsor crossbreedholsters.com and ammo.com.
This portion of the show is sponsored by crossbreedholsters.com. Crossbreed Holsters has gained national recognition as a maker of the best and most functional concealment holsters available on the market today. Each holster is handcrafted to ensure your firearm is safe and secure while carrying, combined with the best customer service in the industry. Visit crossbreedholsters.com.
You know who else is cool? Ammo.com. If you want to save some money on your next purchase of ammo, go to ammo.com/Black Man with a Gun, and you can save some bucks. Check it out, ammo.com/Black Man with a Gun. If you're going to SHOT Show in a couple of weeks, also out there at the range, the 20th through the 25th, is a new group called AntaresAlliance.com. They were founded in early 2017 after a small group of companies decided to work together to do more than they could accomplish by themselves, with product demonstrations, customer events, and ultimately veterans and first responder support. They got about 60 corporate partners and they're growing. The mission has taken hold at every level. I got a chance to interview the CEO of it, and he's up next. His name is Casey Betzold of Antares Alliance. So if you're going to Media Day at the range, check out Antares Alliance out there. They'll be also having a try and buy, a Patriot pitch tank, a showcase, a federal law enforcement silent auction. What else? They're going to have an after party concert. They're having a hospitality networking suite if you're a member of the Antares Alliance. It's a up-and-coming new group. Join me in a conversation I had with Casey, the CEO. I wanted to know more about this thing from his own words. So here we go.
Which was a gathering of Patriot-owned companies, so a filtration of the company type that's there exhibiting, and something that caters a little bit better to the young companies coming in, because a lot of the young companies aren't run by young people. They're run by people that have gone through the service and have come out with a cool product idea, and they've got a singular product or a couple products, and they come into the industry and they've got something that's really neat, but they don't get any love from the distributors or the dealers or SHOT Show or the big industry because they're looked at as so small. But it's the kind of stuff that keeps the industry exciting and fresh as far as I'm concerned. But the tangible connect with the alliance companies isn't really the shooting industry even. It's really that they have a tangible and measurable give back to the veteran first responder community. And it's just a general like-mindedness. So the way I explain it to people is, most of us grew up in a community prior to the internet. Mm-hmm. And when we had that, you could go into town and the shop owners generally knew each other. They had a relationship. Their kids went to school together, played ball together. And I remember as a kid going into the north end of town, and we'd go into the hardware store. And if the hardware store was out of something we were looking for, he would call the hardware store on the other end of town, which was only a half a mile away, to see if they had what we needed before we were troubled ourselves with driving across town. So not only did he go to that level of customer service, but he was literally calling his competitor to help him with business. And so in doing that, he did that because he knew the guy would do the same thing for him because they had a relationship. So now today in business, especially the bigger side of business, and I came out of the military and went into big corporate business in the industry. I just watched a lot of ivory tower building and, not people working together in tandem, not the thing that you would expect to see in this industry. And so the community aspect and working together to exponentially grow our businesses, and that thus the support for veteran and first responders that's built into each company grows as we grow. It's just kind of that community, but doing it with today's rules because we're spread all over the country. So hence the reason for an event where we get everybody together. We can work together. We can drive media contacts that we've worked with that we really enjoy working with, our buyer groups, buyer partners, and then the business-to-business aspect all kind of gets tied together, and we can kind of call the shots on how that event goes. So that's kind of the premise and the idea behind it.
I didn't expect that at all. So you're like trying to undo the crap that's been out there for a while.
Yeah, I think, it's just an evolution of American business. And even the biggest companies, I tell people the biggest companies that founded in, back during the post-revolution, as we got into the Industrial Revolution, we saw even the biggest businesses in the railroad and the oil, everybody found ways to work together because they needed each other to succeed, and they needed each other's contacts and each other's money and each other's business channels to grow. And thus it grew across the American plain into all these communities who all had microcosms of business channels working together. And so then we got connected with the internet, and the thing that went away was the relationship piece. And so we can do business so much faster and so much more connected, and we can reach all over the globe now, but we don't have a necessarily relationship with people. We can work with somebody for a couple of years and never meet them. And what you lose with that is in the day-to-day business piece, we don't have the wherewithal or the thought process or that emotional connect to say, man, I met this person, and this person that I know that I do business with should know that person. And so what we did is we wrapped the alliance up. We've got we've got 9 board members in the group, and all of us have businesses that are inside the alliance group as well, corporately. So we have a business that we run, so we understand the aspects of business. And then as a board, we collectively look at how do we make connections? How do we actively drive the network versus it just passively happening? And what we found in the alliance is we're over 60 companies now in the network, and we've got it's about half and half actually between manufacturers and service providers. So a service provider would be a website developer, a graphic designer, a card processor, along those lines. And those are all businesses that those of us who do manufacturing need. We need graphic designers, website developers, and credit card processors. We need those things. So now we have kind of that full holistic community going on where everybody can kind of work with everybody else. So I literally spend all day connecting dots and introducing people to each other and talking to companies about what the alliance is. And it's all been completely organic. So we have not sought out a company and said, hey, you'd be a good alliance partner. It's just happened. It's happened from people in the alliance telling other people they work with on a day-to-day basis. So we haven't, as a management team, gone out and solicited a company yet, which is really kind of cool because the diversification in the group is really amazing, and it's grown outside of the shooting industry. We've got a coffee company. We've got multiple musicians in the group. We've got service providers that kind of cross in, but not really. So we got a guy that does taxes and does business legal out of Texas. We've got some insurance groups. We've got just stuff that can kind of go all directions of business. So the common denominator is the tangible connect with the like-mindedness of wanting to work in community, enjoying choosing the people that you work with, figuring out how to reduce overhead and increase revenue together, and then most every company has a percentage of their proceeds or events that they do each year that support a veteran nonprofit charity group. And so we started down that path, and now we've got 12 nonprofit partners that we kind of just actively recognize, and most everything we do ties into in some way, which is all on the website under the nonprofit section.
Wow. What branch of the military are you serving?
I was an Air Force guy.
Okay.
Started down the path of being a pilot, and then transitioned early on into the acquisitions career field, which is the business side. I was in from 01 to 07, so a little over 6 years.
Nice. What's it cost to be in an alliance?
So manufacturer pays $2,500 a year, and on the service provider side, we just launched a new program this year called the Business Solutions side, which is an active focus on the service providers. And so what that does for them is it says they don't have an annual fee, but what they have is a referral percentage back for driving business to them. So we have an element of the alliance with a few folks that they focus on driving referral business to those businesses. So, hey, I need a website. Hey, meet this guy over here that does websites. I need graphic design work. Hey, meet this person in the alliance that does graphic design work. And then there's a percentage referral base that comes back. So they don't have to pay anything until business is driven to them.
Oh.
And on the manufacturer side, that $2,500 a year can either be paid or they can earn it in driving people to events. So if they drove people to Alliance Week to be exhibitors, and they've paid full price to be in, then they get a credit of a certain amount of money, depending on which level the person came in at, towards their annual fee. Because companies coming in to be part of that event is worth more to the overall big picture than their fee is. And that keeps us always focused on how we helping each other out, how are we connected, and who are we talking to. And it just kind of keeps that incentive base always there to help companies be focused on growing in community and together, because we're all spread out. And it's every day it's a fight to not just be focused on our pinhole. So that's kind of the way we've structured that. Most of the companies opt to just pay it up front, and then some of them say, hey, I've got a good network of businesses that I do business with. I'd love to drive them to the events and keep them coming back, or drive a sponsorship to the event, and that helps them earn their membership.
And it's just annual?
Yep.
Nice. What business do you run now?
So I started into a group called Snake River Shooting Products, and Snake River Shooting Products was focused on, we spent a couple of years actually importing brass and bullets when the market was really, really short. So we were doing imports from Europe, and kind of established our business that way. And then we got into a project with Marcus Luttrell and built his Team Never Quit line of ammunition for about 4 years. And until Trump took office and the ammo market tanked and just got really tough for new brands and new businesses. And so Marcus decided not to continue that line. So Team Never Quit's a brand that they've tied to clothing and firearms and other things. And on the ammo side this year, we kind of collectively decided, hey, it's just going to take too much marketing dollars and too much push, more than he had time and effort and wanted to put and budget toward it. So they terminated the ammo program this year. So I took my team and we sat down middle of this year and said, okay, what is the thing that the Alliance Group needs the most that we can help with? And what we settled in on is the business solution. So that Anterior's business solutions is took my team at Snake River Shooting Products and we assigned them to driving business to actively business to our service provider companies.
Oh, okay. I just launched Podcast Solutions, taking all the stuff I've been doing forever with podcasting and helping other people.
Oh, okay, awesome. So we got a couple of media folks, podcast types in the group. We've got Birdman Media, which is actually he's more locally focused on most of his shows out of Arizona. Rob Hefner, he's one of our board members as well. And then Marty Holder with Talking Lead. So Talking Lead's part of the group, and God and Guns podcast. Troy Kloppen and Doug are part of the group as well.
Oh, good deal. I know those guys. Good for you, man. You're jamming. But you said this is not replacing Media Day. This is just going to be there as well.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know that it's even our focus to stay in Vegas forever. We started it there because most of the first few companies that started this back in 2015 were all from the shooting industry, all manufacturers. And there were about, at our first event, there were about 16 companies there. And we just had a few lanes out of Pro Gun Club, and we were out just kind of featuring some of our products, some of our friends. It was really kind of a buy-in, invite-only collective little focused event. And we had, we didn't have a vision at the point at that first year. We didn't necessarily have a thought process of launching a company around all this. We were really just a group of companies, friends, that decided that, we had an ammo company, a firearm company, an optics company, a gun cleaning company, and a holster company. And we just said, hey, it kind of makes sense that we would work together and utilize each other's products to do demos to law enforcement or to dealers, where I use all their products when I'm doing my ammo demo, and the firearms guy's using all of our products when he does his firearm demo. And then we take that next step of actually talking about all of the products above. Then we have 5 or 6 times the coverage. It didn't cost us anything.
Right.
So that, everybody working on minimal marketing budgets, that kind of deal. So that was the original thought process. We did that first year, and we did a kind of a media launch event with the Team Never Quit ammunition line. And we had a really good turnout. Several hundred media and buyer folks came through that we had invited in, and it was a good event. And then we went into SHOT Show week, and we had like 20 companies come and find us and say, hey, this was, we heard about this thing you guys are doing. We want in. And I said, there's nothing to be into. We're just people that know each other as friends and relationship, working together to, just try to be smarter about how we strategically drive our products into, brand recognition and growth and sales, that sort of thing. And they said, well, we'd like to be involved in some way. And so we got together and said, maybe there's a hunger here for a reason. These people are finding me as Snake River Shooting Products with a small booth on the first floor. These are companies I didn't know. I didn't know these people, almost all of them. And they would, took the time at SHOT Show, where everybody's just busy as heck, to come and find me and say, hey, we heard about this thing and it sounds amazing. We would like to be part of it. And so that was, we were kind of driven into that first light bulb moment to just go, we're not the only ones that think this is a good idea. So we spent a year really refining what is the value proposition to a company. How do we tangibly drive value so that we're not just another money suck for people that people are going to come into and go right back out of at the end of the year. And we haven't been perfect. We haven't had perfect fits all the time. We had one company we forcefully removed. We've had a couple that didn't renew at the end of the year. And I would say in every case, it was the right decision for both sides, because it was a person issue. It wasn't a product issue or a quality issue. It was a person issue. So that going into this, we can do reviews of the quality. We can look at their products. We can test that stuff. We can get involved with their services. We can have a recommendation within the Alliance Group that a company joins. But until we get into the meat of it, of building those relationships, we don't know if it's going to be a good fit or not. And so I tell people it's really not about the product. It's really about the relationships and the why people are doing this, because it's the like-mindedness that keeps everything bonded together. So we take kind of that military concept that people can come from a lot of different things, but if they're like-minded, mission-oriented, the mission outweighs the people, and then all of a sudden we can move forward. So some of them have been a really great fit and been here from the beginning, and we got people coming in all the time, and it's gotten to the point where about mid-year every year I stop letting people in, and I put them on a pause button until the first of the year so we can get to Alliance Week, which Alliance Week started with just a try and buy range event, and now it's events every day of the week all through Shot Week. And if it continues to grow at the rate it's growing and take on a life that it's taking on, I don't think that it has to be tied to SHOT Show at all. In fact, not tied to SHOT Show, but I don't think it has to even happen in Vegas. We can move it anywhere else and it would still happen. So that's kind of the down the road, hey, where's this going to actually go? Because having a range event in Vegas in January isn't always pleasant.
Yeah. It can be kind of cold. Yeah, man. Who picked the name Antares?
So there's a guy that's one of the groups that's tied to us. So we have what I call professional organizations that are kind of like-minded, but they're already groups that are in place, like the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. And the year that we had all the people coming into our booth talking to us, we'd met on Thursday night as a group. There were 5 or 6 of us that sat around a table. And we talked about the concept of what this was and what it could be. The next day, I went into my booth for Friday for the last day of shot, and a guy walked in by the name of Bill Hampstead. Bill is the benefits coordinator for the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. So everybody that's a member, which they have 28,000 federal LE members that are part of that organization, he came in and they're always looking for things that they can drive product-wise into their member base. So, hey, if you're looking to give your product at an LE discount. So he was in to talk to me about Team Narcoid Ammo and whether we'd be interested in it or whether we had an LE program and something he could offer to his members. And I said, hey, let me run something by you real quick. And I ran the concept of what this was by him. And I said, yeah, I just, we got to come up with a name for it and figure out if it's something we're going to launch as a business. Well, he called me a few days later and he said, what do you think about Antares? And I said, I don't even know what that means. He said, well, that's kind of the point, but it's Latin for pillar or prop or support. So the idea is it's a pillar. Our podcast that we do on Tuesday mornings is called The Pillar. We call the group of people that are involved the Pillar of Patriots because it's just the few that gather together to do more than we could do by ourselves. So there's strength in that number of bonded people.
Nice.
So, and then it's an A word, which we wanted to start at the top of the alphabet if we could. So that's kind of how that came about. And he was the guy that came up with the concept and the name. And we had a graphics designer that's part of the group put a logo together, and she knocked it out of the park on her first try. And here we are. So
that's all right. So how can folks find out about your podcast, about the Alliance, and all that you got going on?
So AntaresAlliance.com is kind of the hub for everything. It has the store that's now, we've been working on the concept for 3 years, but we finally got a framework the way that we want. And so companies are starting to drop their products into the store. And the idea is it'll be an Alliance hub for products. So the manufacturer's products will be there. That can all be found right on the website. The podcast is loaded every single week onto the website, and it runs every morning or every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Pacific, and then on Facebook Live, so people can find it on Antares Alliance. And then all of our social media connects are through the website as well. And then the Antares Business Solutions has its dedicated page, and there's a directory of all the companies. Everything is right there on the website.
Cool, man. Anything I didn't ask you that'll be good for everybody to know?
We are starting to launch a series of regionally based events. The Vegas event is not open to the public. It's business and industry. But the ones that we're going to just start dropping regionally will be open to the public so that we can have the brands start to focus on getting their brand and their products to the consumer base. We've seen a drop-off in the viability of small companies getting in with distributors and dealers and wholesalers directly without a whole lot of work and marketing and effort. So a lot of them have gravitated with today's internet age towards being direct to consumer. So we see it's an important thing to do events that involve the consumer. So our first one of those will be the last week of October in Galveston, Texas. at the San Luis Resort, and hotels are starting to open now for people to book that, and it'll be kind of a closed location with 13 restaurants right across from the beach, and we'll spend a week in Galveston and have a heck of a good time. So, and we'll start dropping those around the country, and we expect to build up to about 5 or 6 of those a year.
Thanks, man. That's pretty cool, man. Congratulations on all these successes and how you guys are just steadily, organically moving. It's nice when the good guys win.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. Still a lot of work. But yeah, we're having a good time, and it's continuing to kind of grow and take on a life of its own, which we think is probably the best way to grow. So
that's cool, man. You got kids, family, married?
Yep. All of the above. Born and raised in Idaho, and then I have 2 kids, and they've been around the country with me and the Air Force, and now we're back to Idaho. So
nice. Well, man, thank you for taking a few moments out. And Casey, is it Betzold is the best way to say your name?
It is. Yep, correct. Mm-hmm.
And man, I appreciate you. Now my folks can start paying attention to you and what you got going on with Antares Alliance. Thank you, brother.
I love it. Thanks for reaching out, and holler at me anytime.
You got it, man. Anything new that you want to pass on, send me an email. I'll put it out there for you.
I'll do it. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye. MarylandShallIssue.org. It's an all-volunteer, nonpartisan organization dedicated to the preservation and advancement of gun owners' rights in Maryland. It seeks to educate the community about the right of self-protection, the safe handling of firearms, and the responsibility that goes with carrying a firearm in public. MarylandShallIssue.org. This is the group, your group, the grassroots group in the state of Maryland. Join us, no matter where you are. MarylandShallIssue.org.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Believe it or not, the civil rights movement started before the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was a struggle for justice and equality for African Americans that took place mainly in the 50s and the 60s. Later, it was led by Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Little Rock Nine, and a whole bunch of other people, black and white. Today, we have access to more things. We have the ability to reason better, to communicate better, but the problems with humanity still exist. There are still issues with law enforcement. There are still issues with perception. There are still issues with racism. There are still issues with gun control. Actually, who's allowed to have a firearm and who's not. Not much has changed because we haven't changed humanity. Here's Dr. Martin Luther King in his own words doing a speech that you probably don't hear that often.
When you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park, and see her developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people, and you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, "Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean?" And you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored. And your first name becomes nigger. Your middle name becomes boy, however old you are. And your last name becomes John. And your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs. And you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly at tiptoe stands, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments. and you are forever fighting a degrading and degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait.
I like to put things into perspective. Think about what happened in his time period and think about what's now. How much have we progressed and where do we still need to go? This is the show for the thinkers, for the smart among us, for the law-abiding, the family-friendly. How can we, as the best of America, do better? It's not just about guns, y'all. It's about freedom. Here's what no one tells you about racism and the gun community. For the past 10 years of podcasting, I've been taking the opportunity to share American history around the observance of Martin Luther King Day. When I was a little guy with the little white shoes and shorts, I was one of the thousands in the crowd during the Civil Rights era. Believe it or not, my birth certificate said colored. I became a Negro around elementary school. It was changed to Afro-American when I hit junior high, and I became African-American/Black right before graduation of high school. And today, or at least the last time I had to fill out a form, it said African-American Black, not Hispanic. I'm a hippie that can shoot. I joined the U.S. Marine Corps to prove my family wrong. I stayed with them because they said there was no color, only green. It later became dark green and light green Marines, but I was hooked for the family aspect of it. They were the family I always wanted but never had. They called it esprit de corps. I learned to give a brother a break if he said something stupid, because maybe, just maybe, he was just repeating the same crap as his dad. I could relate to that. My stepdad used to get angry at me for watching Elvis Presley on a Saturday afternoon. My stepdad had been arrested and beat by police officers on more than one occasion. He was in the riots in D.C. after King was shot. I still have a nightstick he took from a police officer as a souvenir. I got in trouble once in the Marine Corps for being black. Yeah, I was reading the history of the Black Panther Party when I was stationed in California during Black History Month, and it scared my battalion commanders that I was secretly a militant, a separatist, a member of a hate group within their command. My commanding officer separated me and my 3 roommates, and we were, quote, monitored. I was mandatorily moved into a room with a son of a Klansman, a guy who was Native American, and a dude who called himself a redneck from Kansas. That became my best friend. I have seen real skinheads in England when I lived there, and managed to survive all of that to get to this point in life. I created a persona in a book from the title of a book written in 1968 by Robert F. Williams. You know it as Negroes with Guns. Between 1968 and 1999, there wasn't another book about people of color and guns like mine. I took the opportunity to show the world that we have a common history, a struggle, and a connection to the Second Amendment. I thought, at least, the name of the website and the book would be shocking even if I wasn't. As I became a young advocate for the right to keep and bear arms, I started to learn firsthand why freedom came so hard to the descendants of institutionalized slavery. Not only did black people in America have sort of a Stockholm syndrome when it comes to guns, but on the pro side, we also go to the extreme and become more discriminatory than the racist boogeyman we collectively throw on every other person. We need to be unified. That means together, white, black, brown, yellow, and pink. Some of us are walking contradictions, irresolutions, and discriminatory, and that stuff doesn't belong in the gun community. Social media has allowed these groups to foster and fester. I watched the quote woke brothers and sisters attack Coleon Noir, and it makes me shake my head more often than not. I'm glad they choose not to deal with me, actually. It makes my life more tranquilo. I remember when my Muslim cousins were trying to convert me to the Nation of Islam, actually. I remember the stuff that appealed to me and the stuff that I thought was off. See, I had my turn at it. I could have gone another way. I remember when I was running in circles of Dick Gregory, Louis Farrakhan, and others. I was trying to get an indoor range financed and was almost willing to make a deal with the devil to do it. But it didn't happen, thank God. I chose not to go down that path, but I have seen and heard things firsthand. For me, It was a maturity thing, a choice. I outgrew it. I like the fact that people that don't look like me have helped me more, supported me, and, quote, gave me a mulligan when I said foul stuff, and I have said some stupid stuff in my past. I learned a lot about myself on this journey. My prejudices, all of that. See, I remember the dialogue. I remember the references. I remember talking to an original Black Panther and learning what went wrong and what went right. I remember my conversations with the real racists, white supremacists, and Black nationalists. Later, when I was approached by the new Black Panthers, I saw some of the same stuff you see on Instagram now. Guys with no real plans for helping anyone, false bravado and tough talk. I was even asked to go to South Africa once to help train some Zulus. But I love my country, and I will fight for her, warts and all. I know it's not perfect here, but there's no other country like it. I get questioned every now and then about John Wayne or the Pledge of Allegiance I use on my podcast in the beginning. You heard it when we started, but I use it to ward away evil people. So if you don't like it, you don't like the real me. It's all about respect, real respect. You see, I know who I am. Respect is important because it shows that a person values themselves and other people and living things. And we are all living things. Somehow we get caught up in stuff and we forget that. Over the years, I've learned the importance of building relationships and friendships with people that don't actually believe the same stuff as me. I think they call that evolving. It's a don't tread on me kind of thing. You do you, I'll do me. I remember fighting for the rights of the LGBTQ community and the Latino community, even though I'm not a part of either group. I'm not that enlightened either. I'm not perfect by any means. I still got some homophobic crap I drag around, but if we stick to the gun talk, we're cool. But wouldn't it be great if we respected each other? It would be outstanding if all Black people were on the same accord. We would be stronger as a people if we were. 12 million strong, right? But then I realized that all white people aren't together. So how could we be any different from anybody else? Every group has their whack jobs. Every group has their, special people. We aren't any different. But we can stop the racism. We can stop the segregationism. We can honor what King tried to instill back in the 60s. We can, if we try. Now, I know this stuff is heavy. I think I've lived this crazy life for such a time as this. Some people say Willie Lynch is to blame. Did you know that Willie Lynch is an urban legend? It came out of the 70s during our, quote, first conscious period. It was, like James Brown said, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud kind of time. William Lynch, a purported 18th century slave owner from the British West Indies who traveled to Virginia in 1712 to teach slave owners how to better control their property. Supposedly his speech was on the banks of the James River, was first discovered in 1970, and began his life online starting about 1993, when a reference librarian at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, uploaded the, quote, Willie Lynch letter, which detailed how Lynch psychologically and physically tortured slaves. The letter is also patently false. Willie Lynch never existed, nor did anyone from the British West Indies organize such a summit to advise slave owners in the early 1700s. As the librarian mentions in an email to her superiors, Professor William Pearson of Fisk contacted us a few months back about its origins and provided me with a critique which points out to the narrative being much latter-day document, assuming Professor Pearson's critique is on target. I think it's likely that this is a 60s or 70s document. But Willie Lynch's letter has been legitimized by pop culture. Kanye West is the last one to name drop. So has been Talib Kweli, I think his name is, Lupe Fiasco, Kendrick Lamar, and Nas. And Denzel Washington even quoted a letter in the 2007 film, The Great Debaters. In my research, I found two different versions. I'm going to read you the clean version here. It's still disturbing, though. And the letter goes something like this. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and I make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's only there because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on the hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action, but before that, I shall ensure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks, but it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensively for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. And again, I say that this was all fake news, but the psychological impact is real. Manipulation is manipulation. Propaganda techniques are real. And unfortunately, even though this is a fake thing that was put on the internet, it has been spread for almost a few decades now. You almost can't believe it by how people treat each other. We need to change that today. Truth of the matter is that racism still flows two ways. No matter how you feel about Dr. Martin Luther King, whether you admired or resented him, his movement was dignified, peaceful, and Christ-centered. There's still folks getting fired and let go and slapped in the face for comments they make today. But you can't change the heart of a man that way. I remember when I was younger, I remember hearing that some people didn't support King. They thought he was a rebel rouser or that he wasn't doing enough. I remember Malcolm X called the March on Washington a farce on Washington. He thought King was too submissive. The gun community is a lot smaller than the overall American society. We know so much about mechanisms and the history of firearms. I wish we could take the history of the Second Amendment and use it to show a little bit more love to each other. King said that only love can stop hate. And it kind of feels like a Temptation song that the only person talking about love now is the preacher. But if you're listening to this, do better in 2019. That's all I'm asking. Learn our history so we don't repeat it in the future. And if you can do something, do something. What nobody really tells you about racism and the gun community is that we have it within ourselves, that we could fix it if we would only stop the foolishness, that we could do a lot better together than we can apart, that a family that is together is stronger. You can learn that from the Planet of the Apes movie, or that a house divided will not stand upon itself. There's quite a few quotes about together each achieves more. How about it, y'all? Whether you're black, brown, white, or a combination of all the colors there are in the rainbow, or you're part of the Rainbow Coalition, can we stop fighting each other on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and whatever I'm missing? My line in the sand is anybody that would give me a gun is family. Anybody trying to take one away from me is my enemy. Everything else is bull. Thanks for listening. If you agree, let me know.
If you don't change direction, you may end up where you're heading. Blackmanwithagun.com.
Our friend Michael J. Woodland of m-wtactical.com is working hard to become a competition shooter, to be picked up by somebody looking for a superstar in the making. And I'm asking him in this next segment some of the stuff that he's done to get ready for this, his next journey. as a competitive shooter. Here's Michael J. Woodland and I. All right. Actually, I want to talk to you about your competition, how you started it, why you got into it this time, and how many times you've been doing it, and what you learned through like all the struggle. Because that's like some teaching stuff. It's like you never lose, you just learn.
Right.
So I want to kind of bring that up.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that.
You're using the Walter through the whole thing?
Correct.
And how's that been? It's like not a gun that you trained with before. So this is like, you just used it for this competition thing, basically, right?
Correct. Like as soon as I got it, as far as the Walther goes, they sent me the gun.
Right.
And since they sent me the gun, that's the only thing I've been using for competition because it is a competition gun. The difference between that gun and a regular gun is it's 5 inches long compared to my Smith & Wesson that's 4.25 inches long.
Okay.
So it's a more flatter shooting platform, but it feels more comfortable and it's easier to acquire. And it's the length of the handgun that makes it like that.
Okay.
As far as getting started into it, when I first made the determination that I was going to become an instructor and really know the ins and out of firearms, marksmanship and all that, I was going through a Homeland Security course, and the instructor in the Homeland Security course, part of his thing was he wanted to introduce people into competition shooting. So we went out and we did a USPSA match, and ever since then, I was hooked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm more like competition driven.
All right. So now that you have the pistol, what else gear that you got that you had to buy differently?
I pretty much had everything. The competition belt that I purchased, only reason I bought it was because everybody else had it.
Yeah, that makes sense though in competition.
Yeah, so I just looked at what everybody else had, minus a little buggy cart, but I just recently got one of those. I went out and bought everything that I saw everybody else using, not really knowing, because where I was at in Alabama, it wasn't like a lot of people was welcoming me.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? It was more like 3 or 4 people was like, oh yeah, come and shoot. But then you got 15, 20 other people looking for a reason to disqualify you, to get you out of there.
Okay.
So you paid your money, but no, we don't want you no more. So it was like one of those type situations. So once I picked that up, I really didn't, I'm not a really trusting, like I don't trust people right off the rip. So I just started looking at what people was, what they had. And I went and like did a little research, bought it. I already had the belt, right? So the belt I had that now for over 5 years, and it actually fits my Walther.
Okay. That's a seasoned belt by 5 years.
Yeah. Let me see. With the Walther, the only thing I'm doing now as far as upgrades is I want to change out the base pads in the magazines. So changing out the base pads, it'll give me like 5 more rounds per magazine. So they come with 15 round magazines. It'll bump me up to 20, which will make me a little bit more competitive. So less reloads you have, the faster you can be on targets.
Okay.
How
many magazine holders you got?
I have 3 on my belt. That's the norm.
Okay.
Like all the competitions that I've shot, even with my Smith & Wesson, I've never went over 3 magazine exchanges.
Oh, okay.
But then again, it's all a matter of how you map the course out. Last weekend, when I did that competition, there was 2 stages, whereas I had to figure out where I had to put 18 rounds and reload, knowing there was not a round in the chamber to still be effective. But if I would have had those base pads already on the magazine, I would have been good.
Ammo-wise, did you buy anything different? You just still brand ammo you're using?
Whatever I can get my hands on, pretty much. As long as it's 115 grain, because it's still got to be cost effective. And like I got a buddy of mine who works at local gun store, without getting him in trouble, I'm saying his name. So I kind of get the employee discount, give him the money, he goes and buy it for me. But I still had a lot of ammo that I had saved up from when I got out of the military.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like each month I'll probably buy about 200 or 300 rounds and it'll still carry me over, until it gets real heavy for me. So, of course, when I start doing more major matches, the major matches, you'll be shooting like 400 rounds, 300 to 400 rounds in a major match.
What are these?
Yeah. These, I'll probably shoot about 150 to 200, for 6 stages, So, but when you shoot a majors match, that match is like 2 days.
Oh, wow. How much are these cost-wise?
Local matches are like between $10 and $20, depending on the club. But if you do like a major match, which is like level 2 or higher match, those go from $150 to $400. So those are normally the matches you see the pros shooting in.
Okay. Since Thanksgiving, this being January, how many times have you shot now?
Every weekend. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matches so far.
Yeah, it's been some.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest takeaways, things that you've learned?
Some of the things that I've learned as far as shooting is I got to slow down. I got to slow down. I go into a situation sometimes overconfident. I know I can shoot. I know I'm fast, but sometimes the way the course is designed to make you shoot fast, slow down, shoot fast again. But normally, like when I get in my rhythm, I like to fast. I don't really like to slow down. And the last couple matches, if you look at the scores that I put up, you'll see like each match overall, I have about 2 or 3 misses for the whole day. But if I would have just slowed myself down, I would have had shots on target.
Okay, that's slowing down is one. What else you got?
Just sticking to the fundamentals. I'm a big component of sticking to the fundamentals. Like when you pull it out the holster, just go ahead and make sure you're breathing, your position, your trigger pull, all that is on point. Because if you do anything outside of what you practice, that's the appetite for destruction right there.
Right.
Yeah. So just stay within the realms of your capability, because you'll have a lot of people. There was one match I did, the squad that I was on, I swear it was like about 4 masters on it, 2 grandmasters, and everybody else was like A shooters, right? With everybody else like B, C, and unclassified. And the grandmasters, of course, they're running like open and carry optics, so they're going to shoot faster anyway.
So explain that for those who don't know what that is.
All right. So the divisions, you got open carry. You got open, limited 10, production. And but the whole thing is depending on what division you shoot is what you could do to the weapon. So of course, if you do production, that's nothing more than you go to the gun store, you buy a gun straight from the factory to the gun store, you can come out there and shoot it in that competition, but you can only put 10 rounds in the magazine. If you do limited 10, you can do anything you want to do to the handgun, but you can't put an optic on it. Okay. But you have to have 10 rounds in the magazine.
At least 10.
No, limited 10.
Oh, limited 10. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all you can put is 10 is the max you can put. Then if you do limited, you can do anything to the handgun. But of course, the magazines have to fit like a special requirement size, and you can't have any type of optics on the gun. All right. So now once you get to the open division and the carry optics, now that's when you got the STIs that look like space guns and the race guns and all that good stuff. So when you look at it, like when I put a score up and I say this is an overall score, it takes all those divisions and calculate it, and that's where you place. So when you looked at it, like one of them, I was like, out of 50, I think I came in something like 12th, 11th, or 10th, 11th, or 12th place overall. And you're always going to have like 2 or 3 grandmasters or masters at these competitions. And
they're shooting with the optic. You said that makes it faster.
Some people, So, all right. So think about this. If me and you shoot, we always shoot with iron sights, right? So we know how to line the sights up or whatever. As soon as you put an RMR on that weapon, which is like the red dot for the handgun, it's going to be harder for you to find that dot unless you train with it all the time. Right. So now once you see those guys like JJ Rakaza, Casey Ayubio, I butchered his name, but sorry about that. But when you look at those guys, they get behind those optics, they are spot on because all it is putting the dot on the target, pull the trigger. And it's all about reflexes after that. You know, somebody who's lining up their sights, they don't have the ability to be that fast because it's too much you got to do to keep your sights lined up to make the shot more accurate.
I'm definitely chasing a dot.
Yeah. I tried RMR a few times. I'm just not a big fan of it, me personally, because it was new to me and I didn't do good at it. I think that's the reason why I'm not leaning to it, you know, but I think one thing I really want to do is I really want to push me shooting competition shooting with just the sights in the limited division, you know, because my goal is to come A class next year and get on the shooting team.
Okay. What was the biggest goof you had with this whole thing out of that 9?
Not cleaning the handgun and having a malfunction when I really needed to do good on that stage.
Okay. So a Walter is not forgiven if it's dirty. You got to make sure it's...
Well, no, I will say when I first got it, I didn't clean it and like I was throwing it in the dirt and everything, picking it up, shooting it. It performed perfect.
Oh, okay.
Right? But when I was started, like I want to say like in the middle of December till now, we've been getting a lot of rain in this area. So a lot of the mag drops, you're dropping it in mud. And now the magazine is caked with mud.
Oh, wow.
You know, and somehow or another, I think I might have a bad magazine because even after I cleaned the magazine, I started getting like a lot of malfunctions. So I think I got one bad magazine and I just got to figure out which one it is again and put it to the side and order another one.
It's some gravel or something there.
Yeah, it's something I done took now after every competition I go to, I take the magazine apart, brush, clean it out. I go through it now, you know, because now, like I said, I'm just trying to figure out which magazine is the bad magazine so I can change it out.
That ain't bad, man. You know, it's not a loss when you can improve. How about mindset? Do you how you keep your head in the game? I mean, it's been raining, it's cold. It's not like the most fun time to be shooting. Well, maybe in South Carolina it's still cool, but it's nasty up here right now.
Yeah. So this right here is where military training comes in for me. And I've always been the one, if I have to do something, even if I don't enjoy it, you know, I will, you know, program myself. Okay, this is your job. This is your job. And I'm not worried about the cold, the wet, or anything like that.
Right.
You know, even though there was one competition, because, you know, I was a cold weather injury when I was in Korea, when I was a private. And one of those competitions, we was at the range. I want to say it was like 35, 40 degrees outside. And I couldn't feel my hand. So when I was loading the magazine, I thought I loaded the magazine all the way up. And I didn't put but probably about 5 or 6 rounds in the magazine. You know, so when I went to go shoot it and it was a classifier stage, I had to do a reload, which took away time from me and everything. And I didn't do good on that classifier because of that reload.
Oh yeah, as soon as you get to that oh crap moment, that's some seconds right there.
Exactly. But overall, like I said, I really do enjoy shooting. I really do enjoy competitions. But best part about it is every time you shoot, regardless if you have a good day or a bad day, you always take away something from it. You discover yourself in the realm of shooting really fast.
True that. Clothes wise, do you wear anything different? Like it's raining, you wearing like a jacket or are you wearing just your t-shirt? How you dressed for that? You going for concealed or just stuff outside?
No, so my belt is it's outside the holster. You know, magazine's outside the holster. So what I do is I tuck whatever shirt I'm wearing, I tuck it in my pants. And I make my belt semi-tight where it's still comfortable, whereas my belt is not sliding up and down, my waist.
Right.
If it's real wet and muddy outside, I keep my proper boots. Pants-wise, I either wear my proper kinetics or my proper summer weight. And the shirt, it's just whatever shirt I feel comfortable. Like I try to keep it as tight as possible, so it's not like flowing out and getting caught up in the weapon or interrupting me from magazines. So it's just whatever T-shirt I'm wearing at that time until I come up with something specific for shooting. And I'm thinking here when it gets warmer, I'm gonna start wearing my jiu-jitsu gis because that's all dry fit.
Okay.
You're
not wearing a windbreaker or anything.
No. So if you look at me shoot, every video you see me shoot, you'll see me with a shirt on. You never see me with a jacket on because I'll take the jacket off when it's time for me to shoot. And then after I shoot, I put the jacket back on.
Okay.
So like last weekend, which I had no business out there shooting because I had laryngitis. I couldn't talk, doing myself an injustice. I was out there with 2 jackets on, and when it was time for me to shoot, take them off, shoot, put the jackets right back on, trying to get that warm circulated back in me.
Oh, wow. All right. So we're working on number 10 when this weekend?
No, actually, I'm going for RO certification.
Oh, okay.
So when you see people doing the competitions, you always see somebody like with a timer and a pad. All right. So the pad is they're recording whatever the RO is saying as far as score wise. So whatever you get finished with on the clock, it'll probably be like time 24:33. They annotate that in the pad. And then they go through and look at your targets where it'd be like 2 alphas, Charlie Delta, Charlie Bravo, Alpha Charlie, 2 alpha, 2 alpha. After they calculate it, the computer will let you know what your hit factor is. And then that's how you're easily accessible to your results after the match.
Oh, okay. They mail it to you or right after?
No, you just go to the website, look it up.
Oh, okay.
It's all done electronically now. So back in the day was the 80s. They used to do it by paper and you wouldn't get your results till like 2-3 weeks later.
Yeah, I just told my age right there.
Yeah, so it's really fun. So I always tell people, just because you get your concealed weapons permit, that is not justifiable to say you can do something under stress. You have to go out there and practice.
True.
The best way to stay in practice is go out and do competition. So if you don't do USPSA, you can do IDPA. IDPA is geared more for concealed carry. So the whole competition is revolved around concealed carry. Whereas USPSA is just run and gun. So there's a difference, but you can still get training aspect out of both of them.
Anything you want to say as we close out today?
Happy New Year. Whatever you do, just stay safe. Be aware. If there's laws changing in your area, make sure you stay abreast on your laws changing. If you do anything this year, make sure you go register to vote because 2020 is coming up and that's going to be a big embarkment as far as in the political arena. So just make sure you go register to vote. And even though it's still cold, make sure you go drink water.
All right, man. Thanks for that.
Hey, no problem.
Woo! Look at the time. Thanks for rolling with it, brother. This one was a little longer than usual, but I'm hoping there was something that made you think, made you go, and something that you can discuss with folks in your circle. Before I go, I want to give a quick shout out to Devin. He's our newest supporter on our Patreon page. And thank you, brother. Your encouragement goes a long way. Sometimes you guys don't know. I'm down here talking to myself, and it's hard to know whether I'm making a difference, if I'm making a dent, if I'm doing anything of value, unless you say hi or you show your support financially. You're keeping the lights on. You're keeping the host going. You're keeping the audio running. You're keeping the virus stuff checked. You're doing all that through Patreon. And if you're not supporting us, here's how you can do it. prettiest. Are we the baddest mofo low down around this town? Are we not the supporters of the black man with a gun? I can't hear you. Patreon.com/black man with a gun. You ever get in front of somebody who misses you, who hasn't seen you in a long time and just wants to talk your ear off? That's how I feel today. I got to let you go. But if you've been rolling with me through traffic or a long drive, thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for being my friend. Here's a quote from what Michael said in this piece that I also wanted to show you again. I thought it was pretty good.
Regardless if you have a good day or a bad day, you always take away something from it.
So in other words, you never lose. You either win or you learn. Have you heard my other podcast? Speak Life. Proverbs 18:21 says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Join me in faith and be a part of my family on a podcast that gives you what you missed in church. SpeakLifePodcast.com. Serving Jesus without boundaries. SpeakLifePodcast.com. And we're on Facebook too. SpeakLifePodcast.com. I don't know why, but I just want to hug you right now. Until next week, just in case nobody else has told you this, remember, I love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Shalom, baby.
Until next time, friends.
To keep in touch with Ken and his cause, head over to blackmanwithagun.com.
Blanchard.media.